Hey, I'm Tracy Lopertini with Alco Builders and Realty. We have a series of interviews with Alco's founder, Bill Cox. He has a varied history and a rich history with this area, La Follette, Tennessee, Norris Lake, and we have a few little videos of an interview that we did that just gives some background and some history of Alco Builders and Realty. I'm Tracy Lopertini. I'm here with Bill Cox. Bill's the owner and founder of Alco Builders and Realty, and we're just going to get a little bit of history about the business and Bill's business and things you've done here in La Follette. Not all the things you've done. So the first thing I was going to ask while we're doing this interview is, what made you start Alco Builders? You and Charlie, your brother, started Alco as a company. What made you do Alco as a company?
Well, actually, Charlie, my brother, and I was in business in Knoxville, and I was also selling cars. I was in the car business. I had been since I got out of school. That's all I'd done is sell cars for several years. And I went into a guy at a club, and we was talking about sales. I said, well, sales, if you're in sales, you can sell anything. He said, no, you car salesmen, says, you're just order takers. But people come in.
Is that where you got that line? You're just order takers?
Yeah,
I heard you use that a lot.
You're an order taker.
I heard you use that.
You know anything in sales. So with this conversation, I said, well, if I knew what you're doing, I guarantee you, he said, you could never sell this like I do. My business and the car business, people come to you, you sit there and you just sell a car.
Right.
That's it. I said, well, this is not, if you can sell anything. I said, if you give me, let me know what you're doing, give me a week's training, I guarantee you I can sell a thing. In 1 week's time, in a week, I can sell one.
And he didn't believe you?
No, he wanted to make a wager. In 1963, people on the main, like, I guarantee you to selling cars for the people. I was actually at that time, I was in management, but a salesman, we just guaranteed him $75 a week.
For the whole week?
For the whole week. So he makes me a bet of $100. So I thought, we'll take that for $100. Right. So we go out, and he shows me what he does. He measurements on the house and how much he gets for each, for each square siding, or if you did a addition to the house, it's so much a square foot, and they had everything figured out. And I worked with him, and they know he gave me a good idea of what I was doing. So I did that. Well, I've been doing that for about a week. And I come in, and what he does, he has people go out in front with door knockers.
Yeah.
He goes up and sets appointments. And then he goes in, and it's a closer, and closes the deal, okay? So I go over there, and we're sitting at the club, and his closer, and this is after we did close, it's like 9 o'clock in the evening. So his closer come in, his door knocker came in and said, Doug, I really need to go over here. We've got one that really wants some prices and stuff tonight. And he says, well, I've had a couple of drinks. I came in early. He says, guess you put him off tomorrow. And he says, no, I cannot do that. I really need you to come.
Let me interrupt you. Did that guy get paid if the deal? Okay, so that's why he was so hot.
Oh yeah, his commission is so
based on what you could. Okay.
So I said, hey, I haven't had anything to drink. I just got off work. I'll take it.
You were probably dressed up, probably looking professional.
Well, I just got through work.
Yeah.
I was selling cars. I just got through working, and actually had a suit and tie on,
That's how everybody dressed.
Work. In 63, So he said, okay. So we'll go ahead and take it, Bill. So I go over there, and I work with him, and I barely get back before they close it, And actually, my door knocker sitting there, I almost went to sleep on me. But I went outside, and I took the people out. And
was it dark?
It was dark. And I took people out, and I made a contract. So I made a contract right there, contract. And it was cash on completion, because they did financing and stuff too in those days. But it was cash on completion. And I came back in, I handed the deal. He says, well, I don't know about this. I says, You sure you got this? That's a deal. So back then they didn't have the 3-day right of rescission.
Right,
They did a contract. You could just, So
you were on the hook. You signed it. You were on the hook.
So long as you get started.
Yeah.
So the next morning he's out there with people on the job, and so I'm still selling cars, and I'm in management really, and so I keep an eye on it. I go over and watch them. They brought it out, and what he done, he just worked as a salesperson, and he had people in the siding business that had crews that worked, and they did so much per square, and they knew what it cost him,
right.
what his cost was. So they came out and done a great job. We put stone on the front and some white marble siding. I built a little deck on the back, and it was a pretty good sized job. It was quite a bit of money involved in it at those days. So I kind of keep an eye on it and everything, and because I sold these people the job, and so I go back and everything was done. They was really happy, and they could have paid him. So I went over then and said everything's good, and I'm ready for my money. I let my hand out, and he lays my $100 bill over there. And I look at it, but he lays another $100 bill on top of it.
And you really like that.
Yeah. And when he got through, I took the $100 bills and put them in my pocket. I went back to the general manager, and I said, at the car place, Bill Vick. I said, Bill, I have to find somebody else to run your used car up there.
I'm in the building business.
I said, this is more money than I could make in a month back, or I thought 2 or 3 weeks.
In one deal.
In one deal.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm out. I'm out of this business right there. This is 1963. And I left in 63, and I went to work with
that guy?
Actually, I did for a day or two. I went to work with him. And I said, well, matter of fact, he was just a guy that come through town.
Right.
He was Tupelo, Mississippi. And what we call now is a highbinder. They come through towns and put a sales pitch on, and they're out to another town. They think they can work
just moving through.
Yeah, they think they can work a deal, and they go on to, they think they can work a town out. So, well, I found out that after he left, I was on my own, and then instead of paying the people that he was working with that done the siding, I said, why should I do that? I'm in business there, and I've been,
right.
So I go over and I get myself set up as a dealer for Alco Aluminum.
Okay.
So I get myself set up as a dealer, and I said, well, I just got my own crew, because the business we was in Knoxville, we was in contact with the guys next door, and all the people that worked we knew a lot of people worked. So I just started getting the people that's in the business and started to work for me in Knoxville. So I worked around Knoxville and in Knoxville area, and go out, and I went up to, I thought like he did, I thought you had to go. I went up to Harlan, Kentucky, and did some business. Did some down in Georgia. Did that doctor's building down in Georgia. And I came back, and later on in '63, I came to La Follette, and I started working out here for a job. And I couldn't stay there. As soon as I get one job, somebody else wanted another one. And I get another down the street.
You couldn't work La Follette out.
I haven't. I still, this is not.
Okay, how many years? It's 22.
It's 2022, and
that was 63.
That was 63.
You still haven't been able to work it out. I love it.
It was really, and I enjoyed the business.
Was it easier here because you knew people and you had contacts?
Actually, I'd been gone for quite some time, and I came back, and I went to school here, and I left, and I'd been gone for about several years, because I went to service when I was really young, and after I got out of service, I came back and went to school up there in Youth for a little while. But other than that, I hadn't been in this area for a long time. But it wasn't that I knew people. It was just that we was doing a good job.
And there was a need. You were meeting a need.
Right. And the people I had working with at the time was really conscientious, and they did a really good job. And
unlike the crew you got now.
Well, it's a little bit different.
Okay. Thanks. You gotta bail me out on. Okay, so you started that, and now when was Charlie working with you then in that, your brother?
No, Charlie still kept the business. I started this business in 63. Actually, I got an office in Knoxville for a little short time. And I come out here and I started so much business, and then I went in, I got an office out here, and I started staying out here all through the week, instead of driving back to Knoxville, because I just stayed busy all the time, and go back on the weekends, you know. And then I moved out here again in 63, 64 maybe. I actually rented a house and moved out here. And then I've been into business, and I did very well financially. In 65, I rented a building down, it was old Claiborne Oaks building.
Not this one.
No, the old Claiborne Oaks building.
By Continental Campers?
Where Continental Campers is now. I rented that building from Wheeler Hollingsworth, and I opened up a business there, and I started doing awnings, and we had an awning shop, and we made awnings.
Like the carport?
Yeah.
What I would think of as
carports and awnings and stuff of this nature. And I got several.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask you, was when did you start doing the carports?
I did them in probably in 64 or 65. I did a lot of carports in probably about a year. I've been in the siding and stuff business about a year. About 64, I probably moved in there. I actually rented that building, and it wasn't until I actually rented the building in probably 64, because I built my house up on the lake in 65.
Now, when you built that house, it was Rogers Dock, not Powell Valley Marina.
It was Rogers Dock, and I bought the lot from Jack Rogers.
Did you?
And I built the house, and matter of fact, I had a little problem building a dock down there, because Jack told me I could do anything on the house, and I had no problem building a dock and everything. Well, his dad, Mr. Rogers, came over and told me this day that we was doing a lot of dozer work and stuff. He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm fixing to build this dock." And he says, "You can't put that over on TVA property." And I said, "Well, I'm not moving it over TVA property. I'm just cleaning it off, and I'm going to build a house back here before, which I know I'm not allowed to build up to the 1020.
Right.
So he says, "Oh, well, the next morning I get up and go up. I had these people working. The next morning I get up there, and he had me stopped. So my people had to stop. And I said, "Well, wait a minute. I'm going to have to go and get a permit to build me a dock." Well, a good friend of mine worked for TVA, Jack Sumner worked for TVA in Knoxville, and I called him up and told him what I was doing. I said, "I've got to go to Morristown and see about if I can get a dock in." And he says, "Yeah, I know what it is, because he'd been out there with me." I mean, he says, he had a draftsman work for him, he was an engineer. He said, "I know exactly what you need, and I'll just draw a draft you what you need."
Oh, wow, fancy.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah.
So, I go up Morristown, and I go in, and the guy was, I got up there, I did it, it's lunchtime.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and the guy says, "Well, I won't talk to you, but it's lunchtime. If you want to hang around and wait at lunch." So I waited around after lunch. And when he got in there, I got to talk with this guy, and he's really, and I was interested in TVA about why they raise water and stuff, and kept it up and down. And he was telling me that what they could do and what they couldn't do, and why they had to keep water down some below. So the people down below us had to have water, keep it up for the shipping and stuff. So anyway, I'm really interested in. He talked to me for a couple hours. He said, "What do you need?" And I told him this. He said, "Well, that's no problem. You signed up for it."
Do you know you could never do that today? It'd take months to get in front of somebody up there.
So I come back the next morning. Mr. Rogers came by. He says, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm putting my dock in." He says, "You can't do that." And I said, "Well, just watch me."
Well, I
didn't know how to show anything.
You're just being a renegade. I'm going to do it.
And he like watch me. Anyway, So we went ahead and I started that business. I built my house, and I got to build it. I started building houses, and I don't really know why I got into building houses. I bought some property off that Teague subdivision off of.
You told me the other day where that is, off Carwin Road.
Off Carwin Road. I built a couple of houses there, and later I built another house. And I lived on the lake then for, I think from 62. I built this building in 74, I believe. Okay, if you look, I think 74. I built this building, and so I lived about from 65 to 74. I lived there about 9 years on the lake. Oh, at 65, then I lived down. I had the building down there on the Central and Indiana Avenue corner down there. Then I moved out here when I closed that one down. And by then, before that, I started building houses. And I was just building the conventional homes and building houses. And then they come along with this 235 program where the government subsidies low-income people. And low-income people, they could buy a house with a couple $100 down, and payments would be $45, $50 a month.
Of course, the numbers are so bizarre to me to think you've got a $45 a month house payment, but wages were so low, and the houses, the price was so low. I know when you got into Valley View, the price of the houses baffles me.
When I built the house in Valley View, I had set up the 1,200 square foot house, and I sold it for $12,000.
That's unbelievable.
That was probably, now this was I built several houses before that, but this was, when I was building those houses there and didn't start, I had to look on the map.
Yeah, we'll look on the map. 74, it says when the survey was done.
Yeah, that's
so,
right.
74, yeah.
That's what I thought it was 74.
Yeah.
Because I had built this building about the same time, and when we put that subdivision. When I grew up on where I bought Valley View, when I grew up there,
oh, that was going to be one of my other questions. But it's like you've read my mind. How did you end up picking that area for Valley View? That was going to be my question.
Well, I grew up in my family. After my father was killed when I was 5 years old, I came to live with my father's family. And my aunt was married to Carl Higdon. And Carl Higdon became like a father to me.
And your brothers,
my brother and I lived there. So we lived at Valley View. We didn't at the time. Eventually, we moved to Valley View. And so when he got ready to retire, he wanted to put it up for sale. And actually...
About what year, guess?
The 60... it was in 73.
Okay.
About 73, because it's about a year before that I started subdividing it. And, of course, we got to talking about it, and he said, I want to sell this, and Hack Ours was up here, and they offered me a price on it, and I said, I'll just take it. And I said, well, if Hack Ours will buy it,
hey, how about me?
I'll just buy it. He said, well, Bill, I'd rather sell it to you.
Right.
And I'd rather sell it, and I'd like to just for you to buy it and pay me some now and pay me as,
yeah.
And for that part.
Structure it so.
Yeah, structure, sure. So I did that.
And it had been a dairy farm before? Was it
a dairy farm?
A dairy farm.
Dairy farm. I had to tear the silos down, which was very expensive, then to build the silos, but I did not want to be in the dairy business.
Right, so that's when you started Valley View, was on that, your family's farm that you had purchased.
Farm that I purchased from them, and then I subdivided it.
So basically what I know about Valley View is the newer houses are in the back and the older houses are in the front. So you started developing
right in the very front.
Right in the very front, okay.
Actually, it started off with, I did 43 lots in the front part section. And we did those, and then we said Valley View 2.
Oh, okay.
There's Valley View 1 and Valley View 2.
We started talking about that you did Valley View, and were you gearing those houses toward that
235, or what was the program that was here? Were you gearing the house more for the need of the area or more for the product that the people could get to buy them? What was kind of the driver for the type of house you built in there?
Well, actually, to start the house, the first house I built after was a big conventional loan, and it was a little bit more money, and that was a nicer house. And I built several houses that was not for the 235.
Okay.
But the 235 program was available. After building those houses and stuff in 72, I had so many people coming back. I'd sold houses then. I'd started in 65, 66, 67. And I built up all the houses. And this time people started selling them and going to...
You want to buy it back, or you want to sell it, or what? Yeah.
Moving on.
Right,
You know, because a normal person moves every 7 years.
Yeah.
You know, so they want to upgrade, you know. And so I'd either trade with them, I traded, buy some houses. And I traded with houses, and which I did that out of the car business. People in the real estate business didn't do trading business.
No. You bring that old car sensibility back into the real estate.
Right, if somebody wanted to had a house, they said, well, I got to sell this house, but I'll buy that one. I said, oh, I'll take
that house.
I'll buy that one and I'll sell it. So those houses I sold, like a lot of them for cash and stuff, and I did a lot of closings.